Welcome to the Wake Up Dad Show. This is episode number 34.
It was a really dark time in my life when the kids were born. Instead of being able to gloat over our little one the way that we did with Amelia, the twins were just hard work, being unhealthy, and we just couldn't settle them at all.
Are you confused and overwhelmed about your role in all the craziness that is being a dad? Are you struggling to create the life you hope for? Are you looking for other dads to share your struggles and your triumphs? Or do you just need help waking up in the morning? Join your host, Dr. Scott Vatcher, as he explores the amazing and sometimes crazy world of being a dad. This is the Wake Up Dad Show.
Hey Dad, and welcome to another episode of the Wake Up Dad Show. This show is dedicated to the dad who wants more. I'm going to leave it at more awesomeness, and my host is me, of course. That's always who it is. And my guest tonight, his name is Adam Bude. Is that how you say it? Bude?
Yeah, you got it.
Bude, perfect. So I'm just going to give the listeners out there a little bit of a bio about Adam and then let him introduce himself as well. So he's a father of 3 children, a 7-year-old son and twin daughters. Twins, we might get into speaking about that. That's full on. His father wasn't around when he was a kid, and subsequently it was always his vision to be a fully present dad. He came from a sales and management background, never satisfied with his work, so he decided to venture out on his own and become a self-made entrepreneur. He runs a home business in the personal development industry and is a coach and mentor to many people around the world. It's great because he has the flexibility to work his own hours and ensure he's the dad that he wants to be for his kids. There's nothing more fulfilling for him in his life than to be able to do the school drop-offs and pickups, help with classroom activities, and venture out on excursions with them whenever he wants. And he has recently told me he's done quite a lot of world traveling with his kids too, which sounds pretty awesome. Yeah, he runs his business from home, which means his kids will always be around and have access to him. Something that a lot of dads never experience in their lives, and he's forever grateful for that. So welcome to the show, Adam, and just to give the listeners a bit of a sense of where you're at and what you're doing, besides what we had already mentioned in the bio. Tell us a little bit about, let's talk about the twins. You know, they're your older kids, so that's when you first became a dad, and tell us about how it was raising twins.
Yeah, sure, Scott. And thank you for having me on the show. Much gratitude to be part of it today. My twins, Josh and Bree, I've got boy-girl twins. They're actually the youngest. My older daughter, Amelia, was our firstborn. But twins, it was really tough, to be upfront and to be honest. I didn't expect it to be the way that it was. Both Josh and Bree were born 2 weeks prem. And being twins, they also are a little bit slower to develop in the womb. So effectively, kind of 4 weeks prem compared to a normal baby. So had a lot of health issues. In fact, Josh was hooked up to every machine that was there at Monash Hospital for these first 2 weeks of his life, and was touch and go for a while there. And Bree, she was okay, but she was a bit slow off the mark. Got them home, and as you mentioned, I come from a commission sales background, and I was a sales manager there at the time. It was back in 2008, so it was just when the GFC really sort of came into play, the global financial crisis that we all experienced, and my role at that particular point was a sales manager of a corporate hospitality company. So the very first thing that went out the budgets were the corporate spending, particularly for entertainment. So my job was very, very challenging. I was unable to sell, and being predominantly commission based and being the sole income provider, it was a tough time for our family. And I actually fell into postnatal depression, which is actually very common for men. Most people think it's mainly women that get it, but I can assure you, men are equally at the effect of that horrible disease, and it nearly took me out. I was on antidepressants for a long time, and and pretty well. I was on suicide watch as well. So it was a really dark time in my life when the kids were born. Instead of being able to gloat over our little one the way that we did with Amelia, the twins were just hard work, being unhealthy, and we just couldn't settle them at all. So I wasn't sleeping throughout the night, and I was getting up and having to sell throughout the day. So times weren't great, and got to a point where I was within myself. I had to make that choice. What do I do? Do I continue on or not? And thankfully decided to, life was worth living, and couldn't leave the kids. I really wanted to be there for them. That was the underlying drive for me to get myself back on track. So we decided to start a fresh life from scratch and relocated from Melbourne to the Gold Coast and get the kids into some better climate, more stable climate than what we've got back in Melbourne, and also for my sake as well. So started another job here, just took a step backwards in my career just so we could pay some bills, and that didn't work out the way that I wanted, and that was what led me to finally taking that next step and becoming a self-made entrepreneur and running a business instead.
Wow, that's quite the story. Thanks for sharing that, and sorry for messing up the ages of your kids. So you had a daughter first and then the twins, and
yeah.
I truly think that you hit the nail on the head there, that again, that one of the reasons why I created this show was to just help dads out there. The resources for dads are just so limited, and postnatal depression is something that most men would have never heard of when it comes to them. It's like, oh well, it's just mums, right? That's what it's all about. But you're a prime example of a story where it has a dramatic impact on dad as well. So thanks for sharing that. What do you think that some of the, you said that the kids were your drive to just stay alive and to get yourself back on track. For some dads out there that might be listening who are in a similar situation, I know for myself, after 3 months of my child being born, she started to just have horrendous sleeping issues, and that went on for about 2 years, and I literally call myself a walking zombie during those 2 years. I understand why they talk about sleep deprivation being torture, because it really was a horrendous time for me. And looking back, I was probably depressed too. I didn't get it clinically diagnosed or anything, but looking back on it, it makes perfect sense because it's just so tough. And for me, it was a combination of things, but baby starting to sleep better after 2 years was such a big shift for me to just get myself back on track. Is there anything, any resources you used or anything that you were able to figure out that you might be able to share with dads to help them get through something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, the first 2 years of the twins' life, it was a blur for me too. We had little support, and I have no idea how we managed to get through it. But it's interesting that you say that, Scott. On the back of that, my wife Amanda actually decided to pursue a career as a baby sleep expert, and subsequently now is well entrenched in the media here in Queensland, and is the go-to expert for that. So that's what she does for a living. She's got her own business in that. So how did I get through it at the time? I really don't know. I started personal development back in 2002. So I was already on the path of trying to work through my mindset issues. And I'm really grateful that I started that journey, because looking back on it now, whilst I may not have realised that this is what I was doing, I actually had that inner strength to acknowledge where I was at, first of all, and then to have the courage to decide, what I was going to do next. And forever grateful for heading down that path back in the days, because what I saw very, very quickly was that I was becoming very much the effect of my environment instead of being the cause of how we can, fix it. And when you're at the effect of something, it's never great. It's never going to work out well. But when you can switch it around to be at the cause of it, then all of a sudden you've got opportunities and you've got options. So it was incredible that first 2 years was tough. But as soon as I got to that point where I could see what was going on and sort of, looked above myself and thought, you know what, I looked in. Actually, I'm thinking back now. This is coming to me. I was looking in my daughter's eyes, Amelia, and she just had those baby eyes, just looking at me. And it was that really that sort of said, you know what, I'm here for you, and I'm going to be here for you. And I had the tools and the resources to have the courage to start working through it. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point, is to acknowledge where you are. To have the wisdom might not be the right word, but just to have that thought process of, okay, this is where I'm at, and I'm the only one that's going to change it. Nathaniel Branden, the godfather of self-esteem, talks about this idea of self-responsibility. And that's such an important part, is to just acknowledge where you are and to not make it up, not pretend, not create stories around it. Go, yep, this is where I'm at, and I am the only one that's going to change it. So when you start to accept some responsibility, and really what it's all about in the end, isn't it, is a mindset shift. Because the difference between you being the effect or the cause, like you were saying, it's all in the mind. It's not the external environment at all that makes those changes.
Absolutely. And it's the picture that we hold. Ultimately, I could be holding a picture of pain and suffering, or I could be holding a picture of love and gratitude. And when I was looking into Amelia's eyes, the overwhelming feeling was love. When I was looking at my circumstances and dwelling on that picture, then it was the opposite of that. So we get to choose. And I think when you leave your ego at the door and you really be honest and authentic with yourself, then it puts us in a better position where we can start taking little steps, and they are little steps. They're not massive, but just taking that next step to the road of recovery and getting life back on track.
Yeah, and it's all about little steps. There is no true big steps. I've been involved in the health and wellness game for over 20 years, been a coach and a mentor and everything else, and in reality, any true change is slow, steady steps. You can make massive leaps at some points, but they're usually not sustainable. It's about just creating everyday change. It's going to make that difference. I call it the magic bullet. We want to find the one thing that's going to fix everything. And there is no magic bullet. It's the idea, a friend of mine calls it rinse and repeat. Finding those little things that are going to start to cause true change, and doing them day in and day out and day in and day out. And so let's talk about the 5 P's of dadhood. For the listeners out there, as a reminder, P number 1 is purpose, which is your big picture, your legacy, the reason why you're here. P number 2 is power, you're reaching optimal health. P number 3 is parenting, of course, being the best versions of ourselves for our kids. P number 4 is providing and taking care of our family as role models and on a financial basis. And P number 5 is passion in our relationships. And you made that really big switch from basically sales for another company into this entrepreneurial role of creating it for yourself. And basically what you're doing at the moment, and I'm going to get you to expand on this, is you're helping people in the realm or role or world of self-help, self-development. So just give us a little bit more about what you're doing and how you think that this could help dads out. Because what I'm finding, the more and more dads that I talk to out there, is that they feel like they're stuck in their role, in their work. Their providing is there. They want to provide for their family, so they're working. But there's no connection between their providing and their purpose. And I feel like that's just a path for destruction. So how do you think that, what you do could help dads in that role? Just say I'm a dad and I've got a couple of kids at home, mom's at home with the kids. I work for, a corporation, the government, something. And I really don't enjoy what I do. I go in because it helps provide for the family, but I really don't have any passion at all behind what I do. What would you talk them through, and what would you say?
Yeah, it's a great question. Instinctively, and I went through this myself, particularly after Amelia was born, my first daughter. that need to provide, that feeling to provide, just took over. It was something that I never even knew was inside me, and it was all about just making sure that the family was taken care of. That was the role that I casted myself into, based on seeing my father and his father do it before them, and I guess from my point of view, I spent many years doing stuff that I hated, and what I hated to do for money, and it never felt right at all. It just didn't feel right. So I always had in the back of my mind that there has to be a better way. There's got to be a different option. Life cannot be this way. I did not ever, for 1 minute, and still today, don't believe that anybody has been born to fit into a mold, into a system, and just be a factory worker for the dollar. I know for a fact that the system is failing people anyway. So you're going to get up and go to work, and you're going to make your money, and you're going to come home and pay your bills, and at the end of the month, you're going to have no money, and you'll retire broke. And I didn't want to be doing that for 45 or 50 years of my working career, of just working and then ending up with nothing. So it's quite evident that the system is failing. It's quite evident that divorces are on the rise as well, because there's a disconnect between the husband and the wife. There's the control issues over money and all this sorts of stuff, and getting to a point where having to go and do what we want to do just for money, to me, was not the answer. I needed to find something that was going to provide me the money that I want to do, that's going to create the wealth for my family. But the reality is, the underlying point to all this is that I'm doing it for my family. So what is the point for me being away, working all the time, and actually missing out on the greatest gift of life, which is family, your kids? That makes no sense. So having a bit of an entrepreneurial spin to it anyway, and the mindset of, I know there's other ways out there. I think the biggest challenge for most men is the fear of, what if we let the family down, if I leave my job and I can't provide. So really getting outside of your comfort zone and having a crack at life and playing full out is the biggest hurdle, because someone who's self-employed can make more in a month than the average person makes in a year, and there's no difference between them or me, as far as I saw it. I mean, what makes that person over there who's making $500,000 any better than me from a human point of view? They still eat, they still sleep, they still have same issues I have, just on a different scale. So there's plenty of references out there that it's possible. It's just a matter of being open and not being closed, and exploring how you can find that balance, and having the courage to back yourself. And I think society knocks that out of a lot of people, and does it from a very early age. And I'm all about helping people re-empower themselves to take their life back and say, what, I can do this, and there is other ways, and I'm going to follow that. Yeah,
well, how I totally agree, and I think this episode seems like it's really going to be about creating that mindset, that difference. It's like, that's where it starts. Really, the number one purpose is that big picture stuff, and that's really truly where things start for people to realize, okay, I'm no different than dude next door who's making 10 times the amount of money that I am. I'm no different from any of the people out there that have anything that you want. We're just using money as an example here, but really it comes back to deciding that it means enough to make the change. It means enough to you to do what it's going to take, because doing what it's going to take is sometimes it's hard work. There's no doubt about it. Having an amazing life is not about all the times that you lie around on the beach and have a chilled out time. It's about what got you to that position, because you could just become a bum, so to speak, and just go lie on the beach all day, but your purpose isn't there, your power's going to go down, you're not going to be a great parent if you're doing that, and I'm sure your passionate relationships are going to suffer by doing that. So it's really not about that. It's about creating the life of your dreams and deciding that it means enough to you to do the work. So, go a little bit deeper into, what it is you do to help people achieve that.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess the first thing is that people have to determine what that is for themselves, and they've got to be open and willing. So, part of what we do is with our products, it's all about personal development. So we're giving people the tools and the resources to work through limiting beliefs, self-imposed barriers, the fears, the doubts, all these different things that really hold people back from achieving greatness in life. And whether that's health, whether that's relationships, career, finances, the whole lot. As far as I'm concerned, it all just fits under one umbrella. You've got to have the same mindset approach in all areas of your life. But I think that the people that succeed are the ones that have the courage to say, you know what, despite all the odds, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to have that picture so clear in my mind on what I want to be creating, and the reasons why that and then it's sort of sleeves up and head down and bum up and away you go, and you get busy making it happen.
So do you have any with these personal development situations that you go through? Of course, nothing changes. Again, like we were talking about earlier, nothing changes overnight. But do you have any a practical tip, one or two tips that you could tell a dad? So say you only had 2 minutes with a dad who was like, can tell me something I can do today or tomorrow that I can start this journey out. Do you have any practical tips?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes up for me is to actually focus on gratitude. It's something that most people don't focus on. I'm going to assume that most men don't, even more so. It's very easy for us to be consumed in what we think is going on and buying into the story to what we're creating. And easily along that way, we're losing focus of what we've got around us to be grateful for. And the whole point of personal development is to acknowledge where you're at, but then have the ability to shift the way that you think, in the sense where if you can shift it around gratitude and be grateful for what you've got around you, and be grateful for what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the actual underlying purpose behind it, that actually changes our vibration. And by changing our vibration, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be attracting more of what we're putting out to the universe. The universe really is, we're all just vibrational beings at the end of the day, so what we project, we get. So changing our vibration, changing our thought processes and being grateful for what's going to come is a great way to start, because it just opens the world up for you. The other thing that sort of comes up for me really around that, Scott, would be we are born sovereign human beings, and I've always believed that. We all have our own purpose here, and I think the biggest challenge for most men is that whole dare to dream thing is squashed out of them from a very early age. They're indoctrinated into the system. So being a sovereign human being and knowing that it's your birthright to be abundant in all areas of your life, from my point of view, it gives people the permission to start dreaming again and start believing in what they can actually create. When you couple that with the gratitude, I think it just instantly changes the way that we think about everything.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent, I'll call it, of the gratitude movement. I find a lot of times if I'm speaking to different dads out there or whatever, and if they're having a really tough go of things, they find it difficult to find gratitude in something because they're having a tough go, with could be with their wife, could be with their kids. They're not doing what, there's no purpose, there's no, the providing is less than they want. All the 5 Ps are really challenging to them at that moment. And so they find it difficult to focus on the gratitude. And I say, just find something, even if it's a good cup of coffee. as little as that, because it's really, it's like you said, the energy, the vibration that changes inside you. Again, a mindset is just feeling gratitude for something, no matter what it is, just like feeling passion for something, doesn't matter what it is, creates a different biochemistry in the brain. And then when that starts to occur, you start to see more that you can be grateful for. What you focus on, you get. So I think that's a great place to start, and then start to dream. And you can dream big. And I'm not sure if you exactly go into this in your programs, but I like to get, and I've done it myself too. Is like, when you're dreaming big, is like, forget about the obstacles. Forget about I couldn't have that. It's like no. Dream about everything you could possibly want, because again, it's just a process. It doesn't mean you're going to achieve all of that, but it's possible to do that. Is that something, like, do you go into that type of situation in your programs?
Oh, look, I think once you start going down the path of personal development, your mindset expands naturally, and that's the journey, right? It's a forever journey. My email signatures at the bottom of my emails state, don't tell me sky's the limit when we have footprints on the moon. And most people can't think beyond what they can see. They're not actually planning on the unseen. And if you want to be able to achieve anything in life, you've got to think big. And by thinking big, you're actually providing massive service and value to not just you, but you're providing it to the greater society too, which a lot of people don't focus on. So absolutely, thinking big is a key. And the interesting thing around that, though, what you're mentioning there, Scott, is that a lot of people don't think that they can get it. The how is not important, because the how will always take care of itself. It's the why that's the important part. So if you're thinking big and your reasons behind that are strong enough, and subconsciously you believe that, then you'll achieve greatness at whatever level that is. It will be a lot more than what you're doing right now.
Absolutely, and that's, everyone's got to start somewhere. So if you're feeling, this is straight at you, Dad, out there who's listening, if you're feeling really stuck in a situation like this, then, get some help, because I think that's one of the biggest lessons to learn as a dad out there, is there are people out there that can help. Reach out to Adam, have a chat with him. Reach out to me, have a chat with me. I think one of the biggest messages I'm trying to get across to dads out there is that you're not alone, and that we can help you out, and we can start to become better dads, and therefore, better men together.
Totally.
Yeah.
What comes up with me there, Scott, sorry to cut you off, is that you've got to leave your ego at the door. There's gone are the days where the man has to be macho, in my opinion. In actual fact, I think a stronger man is one who's vulnerable, and a stronger man is someone who's in touch with his emotions, and absolutely not afraid to reach out for help, because, you can't just wear the weight on your shoulders alone, and it's all that's going to do is beat you down. But when you're open to receive and you're willing to explore that, then again, that's where magic can happen.
Yeah, and you, again, I think we ended up not getting too much into this, but excuse me, in the pre-chat, we mentioned it about I think the generational gap where our dads, their main role, whether it be societal or what they placed on themselves, was the providing part. So they missed out on a lot of our lives. They weren't around as much as they probably would have liked to, and definitely as much as we would have liked them to when we were smaller kids. And I think that's so important. So, you've mentioned in the pre-chat as well, is that you've been able to do quite a lot of travel with your work as well, and take your kids along with you. Just go through that a little bit. How is that possible? Because a lot of dads out there would probably be like, well, how do you do that? How's that possible?
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite interesting. My wife Amanda went on a school excursion with Amelia this week, and one of the other kids was just having a chat to her. They're just chitter-chatting as they do, little 9-year-olds, and Amelia was telling this other kid that, just in the last year or so, it's been since December last year that we took them to Ireland for a week. We stayed in a castle in Ireland, which was just awesome. We then, in June this year, May or June, we took them to Disneyland, which was a bucket list for me over in LA, and never went there as a kid. My parents went there without us, and I swore that that was going to be the first thing that I'd do with my kids, was get them to Disneyland and be the dad that takes his family there. That was on the way through to another trip to Europe, where we had an event on a cruise ship, Royal Caribbean cruise liner that went out of England to Spain, Portugal, and Canary Islands. So, I took them with me on that cruise liner for 10 days, and that was just unbelievable. Stopped off at London on the way back, and got to see Stonehenge on the way through, which was just crazy. And just 1 month ago, we've come back from Chile, so we had a week in Chile. So we've already got New Zealand booked, and Port Douglas at the end of the year for a local trip. So for me, it's all about the experience. Life is all about experience, and I'm so grateful that I've stumbled into a business that can provide us the opportunity to do this, to do the travel, and to also be at home. So what they're learning in such a short period of time. I mean, Josh and Brie are only 7 and Amelia's 9, and they've done more travel in 12 months than I did in my first 30 years of life. My first trip was to Bali, as you do as an Aussie boy. So, but it's stuff that will be with them forever. So it's unbelievable. So it is possible. You can certainly do it.
Yeah, and obviously you're living proof. So, Dad, out there, if you wanna find out more about how to make that happen, how do people get in touch with you, Adam?
You can register your details on my website, which is www.lifestruepurpose.com.au. That's lifes with an S, LIFESTRUE purpose.com.au.
So I'll put that on the show notes page as well for anyone, the clickable link on that one. And I always like to get a sort of a summary of your biggest lesson that you might want to impart. So I put it out there in the idea of if you had 2 minutes in front of a room of 1,000 dads who were very attentively listening to exactly what you were going to say, and you wanted to get across a direct wake-up dad message to them, what would you say in 2 minutes that would resonate best with you and them?
I say check in with your inner self and ask your inner self, what is it that's really important to you in your life, and what do you really want to be creating in your life? And for me, it was all about being here with the kids, and it was all about being a dad that was present, and being a dad that is always accessible, and also to provide a quality of life that my kids are going to have a great life, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to have an awesome future together. So check in with your inner self and ask yourself, what do you want to create, and listen to it. The answer will come to you. Take it on, and find a way to make it happen for you too, because it is possible for each and every one of us.
I fully agree. So thanks again, Adam, for that awesome discussion. Check out the website, www.thewakeupdadshow.com. Go to iTunes, give us a rating so we can reach more dads out there. My email is drscott@thewakeupdadshow.com if you want to get in touch with me. Remember, guys, an ancient proverb once said, for a man to achieve his dreams, he must first wake up. Dad, you're not alone. This is your wake-up call. We're in this together, all for one and one for all.
Do you want to know more about the Wake Up Dad movement? Go to www.thewakeupdadshow.com to download any and all past issues of the show, claim your free gift, or to directly ask Dr. Scott any questions you have. Continue the conversation on the Facebook group Wake Up Dad. Share this podcast with other dads on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure to subscribe to the show and give us a rating so we can reach more dads. And dads, one last thing. Wake up!